It is humid today. It is very, very hot. Hello everyone. What the hell is going on with my French? Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. Today's book is The Babysitter by Emma Curtis. It's like the house is on fire. There we go. That's your front cover. Let's just get straight in with that blurb for you. This was one hell of a read. 3 women, 3 secrets. Claudia's life imploded 10 years ago when she was convicted of the murder of her child. Now she has done the unthinkable and confessed to manslaughter in order to be granted parole, her only hope of finding out what really happened to Tilly. Sarah is married to Joe, Claudia's ex-husband, and they have a young child together. She finally has everything she ever wanted, but Claudia's release threatened the perfect life she has created. Anna was the babysitter who let Claudia and Joe down on the day their daughter disappeared. Married with a child of her own, Claudia's reappearance in her quiet cul-de-sac is an unwelcome surprise. These 3 women are tied together in more ways than they realise, but only one of them is capable of killing. I think this was another one that I did very quickly. I read this about a week ago, I think. It's in crime, thriller and psychological fiction, and it's 400 pages. And this was really one that I couldn't put down at all. Like, when I did, I was just like, I need to know what's happening. I need to know what's going on. Like, really, what the hell is going on? So you start off with a flashback to Claudia when Tilly went missing, and her babysitters let her down. And so she goes into a house, and there's a new babysitter in a house that she's never met. And she has her daughter with her. She steps out of the room for a second, for a phone call, I think it is. And when she comes back, the new babysitter and her daughter have disappeared. It almost makes me frustrated for her. Because then it goes into, 10, 11 years later. And you find out that nobody believed her. Nobody believed Claudia when she said that somebody took her child, because she was going through postpartum depression, and her husband mentioned some things about her state of mind. People start to believe that Claudia made up the unseen new babysitter and that Claudia actually killed her own daughter. I'll admit, throughout the book I had feelings about Joe. The husband, the ex-husband. When you push forward, you meet his new wife, Sarah. And yeah, throughout the book I just thought there's something weird about him. And the more you find out about Claudia and Sarah, the new wife, the more you realise there's kind of a pattern of behaviour from Joe. And nobody else seems to clock it until you get more information about Anna, which was the babysitter that they were supposed to have, who cancelled on them. And you find out about all the women's actual state of mind. And don't let the fact that it's called The Babysitter fool you. It's not just about the babysitter. There's a bit of duality to it as well, because you've got Anna, who was the babysitter that cancelled on them, and then you've also got the apparent babysitter that seemed to steal Tilly, because Claudia is convinced there was somebody else who turned up from an agency, and Claudia is convinced that this person actually took Tilly. But yeah, so it is about missing children, the death of a child, and so I will just pop that trigger warning on there for you now. It was just packed so full where you really don't know who to trust. The only person I felt like I could really trust was Claudia, but at the same time she's an unreliable narrator herself, because she looks back over that time and it was just like she learned stuff about herself which she'd forgotten. And you realise that her mental health after the birth of her child, the fact that she was going through postpartum depression, and there are questions over whether she had a bit of psychosis after the birth of her child. You find out about other stuff that happened on the day that Tilly went missing. And yeah, it's just such a big puzzle, and I was just hooked. And so you really are just looking at the secrets of each woman, and whenever you see Sarah, it's like Sarah's curated this perfect idea of what her and Joe's relationship is. And throughout Sarah's chapters, you realise that Sarah is kind of forthcoming but not about the fact that she chose this life. The idea that maybe she had been in love with Joe for a long time, and that she chose Joe rather than Joe chose Sarah, because you find out that Claudia was actually Joe's student. He was her high school teacher, and nothing happened until she was 19. Well, that's what they claim anyway. There's lots of little jabs at the idea that that's not completely true. But you also find out that Sarah is significantly younger than Joe as well, and so that leads into a pattern of behaviour, because you're just like, can Joe really not find somebody his own age? That's where my brain was throughout the whole thing. It was just like, why does it seem like a pattern of behaviour from Joe? And why is nobody else talking about it? And it's because it's such a big part of that story. And you realise that, to be honest, I found it weird how everybody seemed to obsess over Joe. And everybody talks about how charming he is, and I'm just there going, that gives me the ick. The idea that somebody can be so charming and everybody's fawning over him, and it's just like, this doesn't sound good. I said I didn't like where that went. It's just, I know it's a big part of that story, and it paints a picture that I wasn't, because I was a fan of it. I really, really enjoyed the story. It was just the fact that he seemed like somebody who never learned from his own actions, and he just wasn't the most likeable person. And there were times when there was obviously an attempt to paint him as a good person who just fell in love, but I was seeing between the lines quite early on, and so when more stuff comes out about Joe, it wasn't as big a surprise for me. I feel like I'm talking more about the Joe storyline than the Tilly storyline, with the child that goes missing. But at the same time, it does all kind of come back to Joe in a way. This probably seems like really cryptic the way I'm talking about it. It's because it's really the story of these three women, and essentially their relationships, and then also their relationship with Joe. Because you find out that all of these women do have a connection, which comes out during the book, and yeah. Oh, I'm just trying not to say too much, but it was so good. It was really entertaining and frustrating, and I love it when a book kind of makes me frustrated, because it's proof that it's making me feel something. If a book doesn't make me feel anything, that's when I think it's a bad book, because I'm just there going, it's not doing anything for me. So when I have a book that has me thinking and wanting to hug people and wanting me to slap people, and I'm just like, you have made these fully formed people that I actually want to react to, or I'm having like an instinct reaction to. So that is what paints to me a good book, something that makes me think and makes me want to react to it. Like, it doesn't always have to be a good reaction, because admittedly, like, I wouldn't say, like, I've talked about the book Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I wouldn't say that was a bad book, I just didn't like the story of it. And it did make me have a reaction, because there were people that I wanted to slap and like shake and say, wake up, this is a really, really toxic relationship. So the fact that that writing had an effect on me like that tells you that it's a good story. You've provoked a reaction from me. I just didn't like it. Does that make sense? Which is why it's very rare that you see me say, I really, really hate a book. I've only done a couple of things where I'm just like, I didn't like this book. Ugly Love was one of them. Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson. I wasn't a big fan of that book either, but it was mainly because it had two sides, and I just wasn't a big fan of the modern storyline, but I really liked the flashbacks to the idea of Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein. If a book makes me have a reaction, I can't go out and say that that's a bad book because I didn't like where it went. It's just like my personal preference of whether I liked it or not. It's not a bad book because it's provoked a reaction. Does that make sense? I feel like I've gone way too far into that tangent. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I really liked hearing the different points of view. Because you see when Claudia is released that nobody's really happy about it. At this point, Claudia's only confessed because it's the only way she's ever going to get out. If she repents, if she apologises and says, I did this and I messed up, that's the only way she's going to get out on parole. And so she says what she thinks that they want to hear. By proclaiming her innocence, it tells you something about the way the justice system works. Just seeing how everybody reacts to her being released, the fact that Claudia's still convinced and still saying, look, I know I'm not supposed to say that I think that somebody else did it, because it does go against my parole, and she's doing her best to not go back inside, but at the same time she wants to know what happened to her daughter because she knows she didn't do it. And so you see her doing that research and trying to find out what actually happened. And I feel like I've read a few books like this of people being released and then finding out what happened. It makes me think of The Mother by T.M. Logan. And yeah, so you see Claudia living in her parents', I think it's like a flat above the garage, while her parents are away, and because it's her mum and her stepdad, I don't think it's her real dad, I think it's her stepdad, and her stepdad hates her, and is convinced that Claudia should go back into prison. Her mum is the only one that's really kind of sympathetic to Claudia, because Claudia's mother doesn't believe that Claudia did it either, but everybody else does. But Claudia's parents' house is pretty much opposite Anna's house, and Anna's parents' house, and then there's an empty house on that street that Sarah becomes interested in. So it's that whole thing of just like, it feels a bit like keep your enemies closer, because there comes a point when you're just thinking, are all of these three women going to end up living on the same street? Oh, there's just so much, and it really did feel like a proper puzzle, which was really satisfying to hear the pieces being put together. Because I did suspect everybody at one point. There was a point I was just thinking, well, how reliable is Claudia when she admits that she went through depression and she notices the things that she did and she finds out about stuff that she's done which she's forgotten about. But then through Sarah's chapters, you're very aware that she's keeping a secret. Her chapters are very open about the fact that she's hiding something about her relationship with Joe. And then you've got Anna, who acts very, very strangely in front of Joe now that she is an adult and she has a husband and a child. And when she sees Joe again, she kind of goes into almost flirty mode. And Sarah's very aware of that. And you're just like, really? Because you're aware that Anna went to the same school as Claudia and that Joe was actually one of Anna's teachers. And as I said, Joe has this charm that all the women in this book seem to fawn over. And yeah, that was part of like what I didn't like about Joe. It was just like, he doesn't seem to take any accountability. But yeah, it was Joe's storyline and Joe's reaction to everything. And I was just like, this guy is portrayed as this charmer, but he comes across as a bit sleazy to me. And I was trying to understand why I felt that way about him. And as more and more stuff comes out, it was just like, I was reading between the lines very early on about Joe's personality and his relationships, to the point where that was really influencing the way I was reading about him. And yeah, so it was something that Emma Curtis, the author, did very cleverly, actually, because it's something that some people may have picked up on and some people may not have. Obviously I did, but just seeing those ideas being planted about Joe and his relationships and the way he treats people and that famous charm that he puts on, it did give me slight elements of the book My Dark Vanessa. I can't remember who that was by, I think I read that on Kindle. It did make me think of a few other books that I've read. And yeah, it was a ride to read and very entertaining and frustrating and just, yeah, all the feelings. All the feelings. But yeah, I'm going to shut up about that now, give you actually a chance to read it. And if you have read this book, please tell me some of your theories about it. I want to know if anybody else picked up on those things about Joe the way I did. Because, yeah, just straight away, as soon as you heard about the age differences and things, and the fact that he was Claudia's teacher, and the rumours about their relationship, and I'm just like, pattern of behaviour. Yeah. Pattern of behaviour. Yeah, so it's The Babysitter by Emma Curtis, and the front cover is a house being licked by flames. And the tagline is, you trust her with your child, wouldn't you? There you go. Oh, I like the fact that there is a quote at the top of the blurb that says, activate your do not disturb because you will not be able to stop reading until you turn the last page. That's a quote by Tammy Cohen. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's a proper like thriller, very twisty. It was one I could very easily have done in like one sitting. And to be honest, I think I did it in like 2 days. As I say every time, you do not need to compare your reading speed to me. I've just always been a very, very quick reader and very quick at processing, which is why, like, when I listen to audiobooks, I listen to it on like 1.5, 1.75 speed. And the fact that I do read quickly means that if somebody's saying it to me, I'm just like, hurry up, hurry up, I just want to get the information. I wonder what that says about me. I'm hoping that we do get a storm at some point, because it's getting a bit cloudy, but it's still very hot and it feels very humid, and yeah, I'm just anticipating a good storm, but apparently it's just supposed to be getting hotter this week and I'm kind of dreading it. But I think I've got like 2 days at work and then I've got 3 days off, so in a row, because I do 4 days a week, so it's going to be nice to have a couple of days to myself, but the rents are away. But yeah, so that was The Babysitter. Did it in like 2 days. Very entertaining, very frustrating to read at times, but also just completely addictive and really page-turny and twisty. And then there was just me like looking at this character of Joe and just thinking, he can't be that charming. Oh no. If somebody is that charming, they're definitely hiding something. That's where my brain went. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and then I will see you on Sunday with a series Sunday video. Bye! See you later. Love you! Bye!